So I really wanted to talk about a company that I feel is I'm just frankly really surprised is not getting a lot of traction from much of anyone. And that company is BioNTech. Now you might have heard of them. They're the company they partnered with Pfizer for the vaccination of a lot of people, and they're actually one of the first ones developed. Um, Now one of the reasons is BioNTech. They're a smaller biotechnology company out of Germany, and they partnered with Pfizer because in 2018 they actually had a lot of work that they had partnered with Pfizer on for developing mRNA vaccinations for flu. And in February 2020, BioNTech they came to Pfizer and they talked about, hey, we think the CV-19 stuff is very serious, and we actually dropped everything that we were working on. BioNTech, they were talking about how they dropped all their mRNA cancer research at that time. They just started working solely on COVID and trying to figure out COVID vaccinations. And in early February 2020, at that time, Pfizer was like, no, we think you guys are great partners, but we're not interested in working on this stuff. Now, they quickly changed their mind on that. And when they started working together, BioNTech working with a company like Pfizer, that's hundreds of billions of dollars, you know, larger than BioNTech. I mean, that company, it just allows for so much more framework for research and development and for vaccination like trials and phases. And Pfizer, they have so many more connections and things like the FDA and the uh, the the FDA, not only the FDA, but also like the research, but also the government and just just getting things through bureaucratic kind of like barriers, if that makes sense. Now, the impressive thing about this is a lot of the it seems to me when I did my research, like a lot of the heavy digging certainly was done by BioNTech. Now, um, this is a really interesting video from CNBC, came out about a month ago, and it's about a 20-minute video about BioNTech. Now, one of the things that they talked about that I thought was really interesting was how they, in that early February 2020 phase when Pfizer wasn't quite working with them, they actually got about four vaccine candidates on their own. Like in that initial time where they said, whoa, this is a like global emergency, we're dropping everything, and we're just going to focus on this. So one of the things I thought was really interesting is there's a huge designation between what mRNA can do for like vaccinations going forward with humanity and what mRNA is going to do with cancer. It seems with the research we have now, and this was something that BioNTech talked about, that mRNA with vaccines is it's doesn't use the normal way like flu vaccine per se would. For example, like a flu vaccine will take a killed strain of a flu, and then that will act as the agent that goes in the vaccination, and that like helps your immune system fight off that agent, and then it develops itself an immunity against flu. So it just fights this killed strain of flu that can't actually infect you and is more or less not so dangerous to you. It fights that off instead of the normal flu, and then you have flu immunity. Now, with these mRNA vaccines, they're not quite working the same way. The agent instead is its instructions for a virus protein. So that's more or less what you're receiving. And the idea of that is that's going to trigger the immune response, and then you're going to fight this off. So mRNA vaccinations are actually a lot more, it's easier to produce these at scale. That was something that they mentioned because mRNA vaccines are made from a DNA template, whereas having to go out and acquire a large amount of virus and like culture a large amount of virus and like use that for vaccine development, they noticed that that was just a lot more tedious than what they had to do with mRNA vaccinations, where they're just using these DNA templates for more or less all the virus proteins that they're going to use for these vaccines. Now, something I thought was really interesting too, and I heard Kathy Wood of ARK Invest, she also pointed on this, as well as the people at BioNTech, is that cancer specific mRNA is for cancer treatment. They really want to focus on the genomics of the individual, what the individual is comprised of, essentially. The nucleotides of the individual is the key focal point. Now, with respects to the mRNA vaccinations, that's not so much the case. But with cancer research, with all the work that BioNTech is doing with like cancer, and again, as I alluded to, Kathy Wood and all of her genomics research, she's noticed this too, that that's one of the focal points of cancer is focusing on the individual and how mRNA will interact with the individual. So let's delve a little bit into BioNTech, the kind of leadership. I talked a lot about them just as a company, this like omniscious being, but let's put some faces behind what that is. Now, I really want to focus on these two individuals here in the middle. They're actually a couple, and they've been together for a long time, researching together for a long time, and they've kind of more or less built this company from the ground up. Now, the CEO, he is Ugur Sahin, I believe. I could be butchering that. I'm very sorry. He's the chief executive officer. He's a Turkish immigrant to Germany. And then there is Özlem Türeci. And I believe she is as well Turkish. And she is the chief medical officer. And they're featured very highly in this CNBC video I alluded to. It's very interesting to hear them talk. They seem very passionate about the company, but more so, and this is what I really appreciated, was they seem more so just passionate about humanitarian efforts and about the job itself that they do. I really wanted to point out that in the video they mentioned that, not them, but the reporter mentioned that they don't have cars and they don't have televisions. So Aslam and Sahi, they just live. They live a very dedicated life, very very focused on their work, and they take a lot of passion and pride in their work. And they see almost like the same way that Elon Musk really kind of wants to see a cleaner world with his electric cars, or he wants to see humanity space efforts and space colonization efforts with SpaceX. At BioNTech, they seem very focused on development of the next wave of healthcare treatments and innovative healthcare treatments through genomics and mRNA and biotech, and that's from a humanitarian aspect in extending longevity in life. That's certainly something to strive for. Let's take a look at the company's financials. I was really impressed. They got about 4.5 billion profit in their first 2 quarters, and I mean they just gone absolutely berserk since. I mean their gross profit now. This is in the trailing 12 months, so like beyond the 2 quarters I mentioned. 11.4. Now that's bill, and I mean that's just gross profit though. So, but yeah, I mean 13.7 billion in revenue. And one of the things I really want to mention about biotechs is that biotechs can generally just kind of keep their cost of revenue lower, because more or less what they're spending on, it's more so research of development. They're not so tweaked about trying to like have to market all the time or stuff, because normally like things like, for example, the for example, like the swine flu vaccine, it was something I had to just kind of go out and get. Like I was in middle school, and we just kind of went out and had to get it. So like a lot of these things are just kind of like, they're not really so much worried about their customer acquisition or whatever. So they can kind of keep their cost of revenues a little lower. But I was just super impressed with the balance sheet. I mean, this company is at a 7 PE. That is just unheard of, very low. And I live here in the United States, and it's just a lot of our companies here are at absurd valuations right now. And seeing a company like this that's so innovative and has so many like disinflationary by nature upside potential with what they can do with their, not only like the rest of their COVID sales, and who knows, to be honest, we could have a surge of COVID again, and then we have to like call upon a company like BioNTech to do amazing innovative things that will have to like change our lives for the better, because this virus is starting to plague us again. So I mean that very much could happen as well. The amount of upside just with the disinflationary by nature biotech, and the amount that they have asserted themselves as a leader in this space, is definitely worth considering. This balance sheet is so impressive. Their assets have continually been held well above any of their liabilities for the last number of years. Their debt has been, they've showed a significant amount of effort in paying off their debt, that they've always kept their debt to a little if minimum. It's also worth mentioning that You don't always want to have debt at zero. Debt can always be debt in certain environments, especially low interest environments like the ones we're in now, can be certainly beneficial to your company, and just being able to take out more money and have being able to conduct more conducive research at a faster pace with more resources. The one red flag, and it's not necessarily a red flag, it's just something I would absolutely certainly note for anyone looking at this company, is that the amount of share dilution is just not very consistent right now. There's been an increase in ordinary shares number in the recent time. With the surge in the value of the company recently, though, with the breakthrough of the COVID vax and the amount of share dilution, if any, that was done, I think it is pretty negligible. But the fact that they did some share dilution, just keep an eye on that. The cash flow of the company has been very clean. This is a very cash flow positive company. And I think, well, actually, I will point out to some evidence here from Morningstar that their cash flows could continue up and through 2022, that as Morningstar noted in their research. Morningstar also noted in their research that the company could go into emerging markets, and very well will go into emerging markets but the one downside of going into more emerging markets is emerging markets will not be as prosperous as the business they've been conducting in the first world markets, the kind of like more affluent markets. In the emerging markets, they won't make as much. They're not expected to make as much money by analysts, as well as one of the big concerns is sales as a whole will just be dropping off because their business will be less needed in their close to home European markets or markets in the United States with Pfizer. So as those people get more and more fleshed out with vaccination, they'll just be depending a lot more so on emerging markets. Now, because of a lot of these reasons, Morningstar has actually maintained their fair value estimate at 177 for BioNTech. So I tend to agree with them. I believe personally this company has more room to drop. I think I just kind of certainly just want to follow it more closely. I opened a very small position here around 210, 215, sorry. Yeah, I opened but I only bought about 1% of what I actually wanted to buy. I am anticipating that I could potentially get a better opening later on. Charlie Munger says that I'm going to find this quote. The big money is not in the buying and selling, but in the waiting. I definitely certainly resonate with that. Now, one of the things, and one of the ways I kind of want to implement that strategy is I just don't want to really touch this. I already opened up a small, very small, albeit position with this company at around 215. If it takes off and it goes back to the moon, that's fine. I can hold on to my share however long I want. I don't have to. I'm not in any rush to get rid of it by any means. Now, should this go lower to about where Morningstar believes that it's very well possible could be, even in this market environment, then yeah, I certainly think I will very, very much so aggressively increase my position because I'm very much in awe of what this company's been able to accomplish. The amount of fortitude and the amount of assertiveness they had in working with Pfizer and how early and quick to action they were is worth commending. And when you consider just the medical breakthrough that it is that they could develop a 95% effective vaccine within less than a year of CV-19, a very devastating communicable virus that descended upon the world. The fact that they could do that within less than a year is amazing. I personally believe it's largely probably one of the biggest breakthroughs in modern medical history. I mean, And this company is just selling off like hotcakes. Like, I mean, 40, what is it, 47% down? That is insane. This company just made a life-changing innovation and it's just selling off. And they have stellar balance sheet. They have so much disinflationary upside ahead of them. They have so much promise in their mRNA and in genomics and cancer pipelines, and no one wants a part of them. They sell this company off down to a 7 price to earnings. I mean, that is amazing. Now, I want to talk about some bearish cases with this company that I kind of want to note. One thing is, if you buy BNTX, the ticker of this company, on the NASDAQ, you are not buying BioNTech shares. You are buying depository receipts of BioNTech. Now, that's what this is here. You see this where it says ADR? So a depository receipt is basically you're buying shares in a shell company. Now that shell company, there is value to that shell company. It's just called a shell company. That shell company has ownership in BioNTech, in more so of like the German economic market, stock market. It's more established. So that, but this is just, it's easier for someone like me who's a United States citizen, maybe has like a smaller account, uses something like a Fidelity, a Robinhood, a Charles Schwab. Like, it's a lot easier for me to just go on the stock market, and my stock market, and just go on like the NASDAQ, which is something that a lot of us in the United States trade on very frequently, and just buy a BNTX share. Now, this decline, I don't believe, is due to a lot of the bearishness that has been in ADRs recently. Alibaba is I believe, a stellar company out of China. Huge market cap. 453 billion dollar market cap. Now, this is they have been much larger than that though. We're gonna zoom out here to the 5-year. They were once at one point trading at about $310. That's almost a double market cap. This was almost a $1 trillion company at one point. Now, one of the reasons you see this crazy decline in a Chinese company like Alibaba, 46% decline currently from all-time high. One of the reasons you see that is a lot of people have gotten really bearish on Chinese ADRs, in particular, very much so Chinese ADRs. Now, the reason that a lot of people are concerned is a lot of newer investors, I think what happened was they just didn't know what they were buying. And they were buying these swaps of Chinese stock. And then when they later discovered information that, hey, you don't actually own these shares. And I think they put together like the 1 and 2 of like, oh, I live in a place that maybe doesn't have such great political affiliation with China. Maybe I don't want to hold on to this asset anymore. All it represents is a receipt of I own a share. I don't own any shares. There's nothing on an exchange that says I own a share other than I own this receipt. So a lot of people got really spooked off and just started selling off their Alibaba. Now, the reason I'm saying I don't think this stock entered a bear market because of this ADR bear market that you've seen in China. There's a lot more to these like Chinese stocks that's happening than just what I mentioned. This ADR is just one piece of the pie on that whole like Chinese spiel I was giving off. Now, BioNTech, why I believe these are selling off is I believe this was just euphoric price action around here, and I believe this was just kind of like a nominal, like a natural almost sell off, like down from the euphoric price action, almost like a return to mean kind of. It is good to see, as someone who's looking at the stock right now, I'm very happy that I could see euphoric price action in something like this. It does mean that it does have that kind of like disinflationary, like, and good sentiment and excitement to the upside, but definitely trying to get as low as you can for an entry to this 200 moving average. I would certainly be more preferable to that. But yeah, I just, some other things I wanted to bring up was this is mRNA. This is Moderna. This is actually an American company. Does a lot of the same work, mRNA, biotechnology, headquartered in Massachusetts, one of the largest, like craziest, kind of like scientific, especially like medical scientific hubs. When you consider like they have like companies like Boston Scientific up there and stuff like that. So, um, but yeah, check out. I mean, this thing is selling off too. I think what a lot of this has to do is a lot of investors are realizing that a lot of the bearish takes that Morningstar had about like, hey, these things, these vaccine sales, they're going to fall off at some point, and these companies, their revenue streams and the whole way they're evaluated is just going to have to be looked at in a whole different way. Now, the crazy thing about Moderna is it's, when you consider like the average US Fortune 500 market cap right now is something like, I don't know, like 28 or 29. Moderna is a 14.2. That's a little heftier than BioNTech, which was around a 7, but that's still kind of lower than the American index. And one of the things I also really wanted to point out with the Morningstar fair value estimation that they believe it has more room to drop is that, BioNTech is a German company and they're going to operate in an entirely different, like, kind of market environment. The interest and rate environment will be different in Germany than it is in the US. The valuation environment will be different in Germany than it is in the US. In my personal opinion, I just believe that US stocks in general are running pretty hot in valuations. Now, mRNA doesn't look too bad at 14 when you compare like the average 14,500 is at around like a 28, 29, but like BioNTech is very appealing to me with how well backed up this company is with its cash revenues and for at least like the next couple years. And I mean, just look at these like quarterly financial year over year growth numbers right here. This is definitely something to watch. So again, this is just something I just wanted to point out. I'm just very kind of somewhat appalled that when I was going to do more research on this, I didn't find a lot of things, and I decided I'm going to like take some into my own hands and do some myself. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. Please take care.